Hello everyone, today I will be showing you what we will be creating by the end of this course. And the application that we will be creating during this course is called PIDA, or the Python Digital Assistant. So first, when we load the application, we get this little box with a text box. And we can ask this text box any information, and it will gather data from the internet and then try to give us an answer. So let's just start with a very simple question. What is the meaning of life? Very simple. And it says 42 according to the book The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams, which is a great book if you haven't read it yet. Okay, next we can also ask it to do some simple math problems for us. So instead of having to get out that calculator app, you can just go on your computer if you're already on it and do some calculations. So let's say 7 plus 5, 12, and we can also do it with algebra, so 7x plus 5x, we get 12x. Great. We can also get data from Wikipedia. So if we say something like what are, or what is, or who is, or anything like that, it will give us the Wikipedia article of what we look up. So if I ask it something like, who is Thomas Edison? And you will see it comes up with the Wikipedia article, or at least the summary of it, for Thomas Alva Edison. Great. And this is just the finished product of our application. After this, there will be a section of the course where we will add additional things to our application. So for instance, maybe making it talk, making it go into other languages, etc. And we'll just keep on adding features over and over again until you have a bulk application that suits your needs that you can really use in the real world. So thanks for watching this video, and I hope to see you in my course. Okay, congratulations, you have an operating installed which already has Python running by default. So there's just one more step that you need to do, and that is figuring out how to run Python files. And it's very simple. First thing you want to do is you want to go to the dash board and then type in Ubuntu Software Center. From there you would click on this and then type in IDLE, okay, or idle, and you see here I have idle using 3.5 and idle using 2.7. You want to make sure that the idle installation that you use is using 2.7. And you see the regular idle right here. If I click on this, it comes up as 2.7. So that version's fine too. If you see it says 2.7 at the top. So without further ado, let's just click on idle. Okay, good. So all we have to do is do file, new file. Okay, good. So I can do, I'll name it our application, which is pyda.py, and I'll save it in my programs and Python directory. Great. So now you see here, this is just a standard Python interpreter. So like I can do like print hey, and you see hey prints there, or I can just run something directly from this file. So, if I can get this up, if I want to do print hello world, great. So if I do F5, okay, and then press OK to save it, and it says hello world. So F5 basically is just the function that runs the command. You can also do like file run or whatever, but it's pretty simple. Now, once you have saved your file and you close out of everything and you want to open a file, it's very simple. So I'm going to open up the completed code for this course by doing file, open, or Control O, and then going to programs, Python, and then PyDA complete. Sweet, and then it has our finished code. Okay, so this is just a quick video of how I'll be editing my code and how I edit my code in general if you want to edit it like me throughout this series. So first I have the final PyDA code that we'll be working on by the end of this video. And basically what I'm going to do is I have a add-on for the text editor that I use. It's called Atom Text Editor. It's a free open source text editor that helps you edit code, and it helps you do that a lot faster and more efficiently. So if I click on this plus right here, I have an add-on for the terminal, and I can do a plus, and you see that it opens up my project directory where PyDA is. And then to run a Python file in the terminal, you do Python and then the name of the file if it's in the directory. So pyda.py. And there you see the PyDA window comes up. So if you want to learn more about Atom or anything, you can look up some online tutorials. And yeah, thanks. Okay everyone, so today we are going to be looking at the core of our application, and that is Wolfram Alpha. So you can go to wolframalpha.com and it'll come up with this website. And basically what Wolfram Alpha is it's the computational knowledge engine. It can get statistical data, it can get places in geography, it can help you with math, it can do all sorts of stuff, and it's what we're going to be using with our application. So for starters, let's just input something random. So the allocation's of 30 centimeters. And we see it computes it. And what we'll come up with is it talks about the wavelength allocations, aeronautical, radiative. I can't even read that, but it has a lot of very unique qualities and a lot of very helpful and very complex things that you can do with it. So first what we're going to do is we're going to get our application to call on this website and to basically sort of input what the user puts in to the website and then print out the information that the website gives it. So we're going to go to the products.wolframalpha.com/API, and for me I'm going to sign in, but you're going to want to sign up. So I'll sign in. And we see here I have two apps. I have a test and I have PyDA. So what an app is it's just basically a certain code that the application has to put in so that you can use it. And you're not really supposed to share your app with other people, your app code with other people, but it's very important to your application. So I'm going to get an app ID, application name, let's say tutorial, and then no description. I'll get the app ID. Oh, looks like description is required. So I'll say this is for a tutorial. Okay, get the app ID. And now I have this app ID right here that I can input in. So when you create your app ID, copy it, and I'll see you in the next video. Okay, so now that we know what Wolfram Alpha is, how to use it, and our app ID, we are going to start embedding this into our Python application. So first, hopefully you already have pip and Wolfram Alpha, the API, installed. If not, you can go to the article tutorial that I have in my first section of this course. And let's just get right into it. So first, we're going to need to import the Wolfram Alpha API using import Wolfram Alpha. Okay, good. So now that we have Wolfram Alpha imported, what we're going to need to do is get input from the user. So we'll set a variable named input and set it equal to raw input. And let's make the question. And then after that, the user would put in their question. Okay, great. Next, what we want to do is we want to put in our app ID. And your app ID is private. The current app ID that I'm using now, I'll deactivate after I finish this video so you cannot use it. So this is our app ID right here. And you would just replace this string right here with your app ID, the one that you that I showed you in the previous tutorial. Next, after that, we are going to create a client that is going to call on our app ID. So client equals Wolfram Alpha dot client, and we'll set that equal to app ID. Great. So now that we have our client created, we're going to make sure that we print the results. So result is going to be equal to client dot query, and the thing that we are going to be searching for is the input, what the user put in, and we see we declared that variable right there. Okay, so we have the results ready. All we need to do is put them in an answer. So in this answer, we're going to make a variable called answer, set it equal to next result dot results dot text, to make sure that, you know, Wolfram Alpha doesn't give us a graph and that could create problems. And then after that, we will just print the answer. Okay, great. So now I'm going to pop up a new terminal window, and I'm going to run our file, so python pyda.py, and let's ask it a question. What is the meaning of life? And you see it gives us the same answer that it did in the video tutorial that I showed you on what we would be building. So that's really cool. You can already see that our application is coming together. Okay, great. So now that we know what Wolfram Alpha is and how to get data from it and put it into our application, we are going to start using the Wikipedia API so we can get info from Wikipedia. So the first thing that I want you to do is I want you to go to the resources link after this lecture, and I want you to see the link, and I want you to click on it, and I want you to look at this web page and sort of get an understanding for what we're going to be doing with this API. And in the next tutorial, I'll show you how to use this, and we'll start implementing it into our application. So now that you've looked at the Wikipedia API documentation, we're going to get started in coding a basic application so that we can implement this into our app later. So the first thing that we're going to do is import the Wikipedia library with import Wikipedia. Great. After that, what we want to do is we want to get input from the user so they can type something in, and then it will show the Wikipedia article and a summary of what that thing is. So we'll do input equals raw input, and we'll put under here, let's say just Q for question and a space. Great. So now what we're going to do is we're going to print the Wikipedia dot summary of input. Okay, now let's just test that out just to see if it works. So we'll open this up and we will, let's say, okay, run the Python file. Okay, great. So we have the Q, and let's ask it a question like Thomas Edison. And you see it prints out the Wikipedia summary for Thomas Alva Edison, just like it did in the demo video, and just like if you go to Wikipedia and you look up Thomas Edison on there, and you will see this exact same article. Now, we want this to keep on doing this over and over again, keep on asking a question so that we can get more information more than once, right? So let's say we do while true, then we'll get input, tab that in, a little bit big tabs, but that's okay. And now you get this. Okay, so question, let's do Thomas Edison. Okay, another question, let's say dog. And we can just keep on printing out the Wikipedia articles for all this stuff. Okay, great. So in the next tutorial, we are going to be looking at more advanced features of the Wikipedia API, and then after that we're actually going to implement this and Wolfram Alpha into a big mega application that we will then put into a GUI, or graphical user interface. Alright, so we've already looked over the basic features of what we can do with the Wikipedia API. Now let's look at some of the more complex stuff that you can use to really personalize your application. So first off, when I type something in there and it shows me the Wikipedia article, it's awfully long. So let's say if we want to short this down to say 3 or 4 sentences, or maybe if you want a computer to say the Wikipedia article instead of actually you reading it, you obviously don't want it to be, several paragraphs long. So we're going to do a comma after input, and we're going to do sentences, and we'll set that equal to the number that you want. In this case, I just want it to print the first 2 sentences. Great. So now if we open up our terminal and run the Python file, what we're going to do is let's just look up, say, cat. And it has the first 2 sentences from the Wikipedia article on cats. But now we have a problem. What if your user doesn't speak English or something? You can easily modify your application so that it displays the information in another language. So all we have to do is we have to do wikipedia.set_lang and set it equal to, in a string, the language that you want. So for instance, FR would be French, ES would be Spanish, DE would be German, and ZH would be Chinese. So for this example, I'm going to do ES for Spanish. And now, our application is in Spanish. So I can do Python pyda.py from my file, and we'll do dog. And it has a little Wikipedia article about dogs. Now let's see if we can do dog in Spanish, which is perro. And it comes up for Pedro. And that's the only problem with using another language, is you have to sort of translate it back and forth in your application. But otherwise, this is great. And we have a lot more capability to our application now. Okay, great. So we're in the final stretch of finishing our application. All we have to do is combine the data that we get from Wikipedia and the data that we get from Wolfram Alpha into one file, and then put that into a GUI, or graphical user interface. Okay, great. So first, let's just import the file. So import Wikipedia, and then import Wolfram Alpha. Great. So now we're going to create a forever loop, so then we can, so then the user can input questions multiple times until he or she closes the application. So we'll do while true, and then inside there we'll do input. So we'll get the user's input, and we'll set input equal to raw input, and then put a Q : space. So for question, Q for question. Then after that, we'll build a try and except loop. And if you don't know what a try and except loop is, basically you tell Python to try the code that you put in the try block. And if that doesn't work, if that raises an error, then try the code that you put in the except block. So in this case, the try block is going to have our Wolfram Alpha code. So I'll just make a comment, say Wolfram Alpha. And the except block is going to have Wikipedia. Great. So now what we're going to do is we're going to open up our text editor, and we'll get all the stuff that we have from Wolfram Alpha, except for, of course, the import statement and the input variable, and we'll put that in that try block. And we will make sure to indent it properly. So we have the app ID, then we create a client with that app ID, then we query the results from the user's input, then we find an answer that uses text, and then we print that answer. Great, now we need to do the same for Wikipedia, and all we're going to have to do is to print the Wikipedia summary of what we inputted. Okay, good, so we're done. All we have to do is run our application to test it out. So I'll do python pyda.py. So we have a question. Let's just do a simple math question. So let's say 9 plus 3,242. That works. And we get the answer. Then we say, what's the meaning of life? Okay, so we get 42, just like we did in the demo video. And the last thing that we're going to do is we'll just ask for Thomas Edison. Who is he? And you can see that it's taking a little bit longer because Wolfram Alpha has to find out that it doesn't know how to do it. And we get the Wikipedia article for Thomas Alva Edison. Great. So our application is pretty much done. All we have to do is create a graphical user interface. Then after we create the user interface, we need to edit our application so that it fits into that interface better. And then we'll be done with our application. Sweet. Okay, so now we're getting into the nitty-gritty, not fun part of our application, which is setting up the GUI, or graphical user interface. And that's basically going to give our application, for lack of a better term, a window on our computer. So instead of running it just, in the terminal here, or whatever you were doing to run Python code before, it's actually going to pop up on a box, which we can then lock to the launcher and set up. So that's awesome. So all we're going to have to do is we're going to have to import the library, which is import wx, and then below that we're going to set a class, and that class is going to be a class of myFrame, and we're going to put in the parameters wx.frame. Great. Now after that we need to define an init function. Great, and set it into self because we're a class. Then after that, we are going to set some basic info about the application. Okay, so what did I just do? So I set wx.frame.init, that's us, and I set the parameters as self, none, position to the wx.default position, the size to wx.size, which I set to 450 and 100, but you can change it to whatever you want. The style, so we have a minimized box, a system menu, a caption, a close box, and clip children, all separated by pipe operators. And I also set the title equal to the name of our application, which is PyDA. Great. So now what we need to do is we'll set some more stuff about the application. So we have panel, which equals wx.panel self. MySizer, which is going to be the box sizer for wx.vertical. And the label, or LBL, which is going to be equal to wx.staticText. Put it in the panel. And the label is going to be equal to, hello, I am PyDA, the Python digital assistant. How can I help you? And I'll just change that D in PyDA to a capital D. Great. So now what we're going to do is we are going to add a sizer. We're going to add a sizer and add label 0 wx.all and 5 to it. Then we're going to do self.txt equal wx.textControl on the panel. The style is going to be wx.teProcess enter, and the size is going to be 430. So this is basically just going to set up a text box. I was going to say put it in the panel, make it an enter process, and set the size to be 400 by 30, which you can also change. Next up, what we're going to do is we're going to add some more stuff. So we have self.text.focus to focus the text. self.text.bind. So we're going to bind this function right here to self.onEnter, which is where we're going to put all of our previous code that we created in the earlier tutorials. Then we're going to add to my sizer self.text 0 wx.all and 5. And then we're going to set the panel to the sizer that we made here, and we're going to show the box. So next, all we have to do is define our onEnter function. And so we're going to get out of the def init indentation and do def onEnter. Great. And then we'll set it equal to self and event. Okay, good. And so now in here, what I'm going to do is, to make this easier for us, I'm going to put in here input equals self.text.getValue and input equals input.lower. You don't have to do this, but this is just a sneak peek on what we're going to do in the end tutorial. Okay, good. And then onEnter, we'll just say print it worked. Okay, and so one last thing that we have to do is, outside all indentation, what we're going to do is run the app by doing if name in main, the app.wx.app is going to equal to true, frame is going to equal to my frame, and app is going to equal to, an app.main loop is going to run. Okay, so we'll save this, open the terminal, then type in Python pyda.py. We see that the window pops up, and if we press enter, it's going to say it worked. Sweet.
Okay, great. So now we've created the graphical user interface for our application, and we also finished, a while back, we finished the main code to make our application dynamic and actually useful. So all I have to do is combine these two files together so that they work together, and then after that we'll do a few finalizing features in the next lecture to help us, to help our application be more dynamic. So first off, let's just copy all of the WX Python code, and if you, say, lost this code or anything, you can go to my GitHub, and I'll have a link in the resources of this lecture, so you can do that. And I'll just go to our main file, and I'll paste that in. Great. Now we want to go to, we want to import Wikipedia and Wolfram Alpha. Great. Okay, next, what we're going to do is, inside this onEnter function, you see right here, we created a variable called input and set it equal to the we set it equal to the value that happens when the user presses enter, and then the value that is in that text box. And then after that, we make that all lowercase just to avoid confusion. You know, what if they use a capital or period, stuff like that, and it makes it easier. So after that, we're going to copy this statement right here, except for the while true and the input, because we already have declared input. And we'll put that right after we declared the input variable here. Now let's fix the indenting. And we'll save this. And we're pretty much good to go. So let's open up our terminal, or press F5. Run the file. And wait for it to load. And you see we have this little box pop up, and we can type stuff in. So let's say, what is the meaning of life? And it says 42. Great. Now let's ask it, just put in Thomas Edison. And it has the thing on Thomas Alva Edison. We can do math. So let's say 9 plus 15, 14. We get 23. Great. There's just one problem with our application, though. If we say, let's just say, who is Thomas Edison? it's not going to come up with the Wikipedia article for Thomas Edison. It comes up with the Wikipedia article for this American photographer guy who worked with Thomas Edison, so it's kind of related, but it doesn't work. And so that's what we're going to be working with in the next video. Then after that, we'll get some text-to-speech support, and we'll be done with our application. Sweet. So there's something that bugs me with this application, and that is with the Wikipedia part of our application. So just to show you, I'm going to open up a terminal window, then run our file. Okay, great. So let's say, in order to look up a Wikipedia article, Wikipedia is searching what Wolfram Alpha can't search. So if I say Thomas Edison, you're going to see Thomas Edison pop up right here. However, if I say something like, who is Thomas Edison, you will see that it's a little bit different. See, it has about someone who worked with Thomas Edison, but not actually Thomas Edison. And that's partially a glitch with the Wikipedia API itself, but we can fix it very simply. So first of all, I want you to pause the video and think of how we can fix this. Okay, so how we're going to fix it is actually very simple. What we're going to do is we're going to take the input and we're going to divide every word into its own separate string. Then after that, we're going to take out the first two words of that string and just leave the rest to be the input. So essentially, if you ask who is, what are, what does, anything like that, what it's going to do is it's just going to automatically take off those first two words and then just leave the query, what you're actually asking, and query that to Wikipedia. So let's do that. So let's say input equals input dot split, and we will split it by just a space, like that. So every space we split it off. Then after that, we're going to take that input, do input equals space dot join, and then inside these two parentheses, input square brackets 2 colon. Okay, so we split the input by spacing, and then we join it except for the first two words, and then we'll print the Wikipedia summary of the input. So now let's test out our application and see if it works. Okay, so I open up the PyDA, and then I say, who is Thomas Edison? Wait for it to think. And we have the Thomas Alva Edison Wikipedia article. Great. Okay, great. So now we are going to make our application talk. And to do that, we're going to use the eSpeak API, which I will provide links in the resources of this video so that you can install that for your operating system. So first, we'll just go to the top of our application and do from eSpeak, import eSpeak. Okay, great. And now let's just give our application a welcome message so that when we load our application, it will just say welcome. Literally, it'll say welcome. So let's do eSpeak.synth. Don't ask me why they chose synth. They should have just chosen say or speak or something like that, but they chose synth. So eSpeak.synth, and inside the string, we'll say welcome. And you can even put your name or make a custom greeting. It's up to you. Next, let's go to the Wolfram Alpha part of our application, and right under where we print our answer, let's say our answer. So eSpeak.synth, and let's do answer. But wait, we can make our application a little bit more personal than that. So how about instead, let's add a string first, and then inside that string, we'll say the answer is, and then we'll do a plus between the answer is an answer. So then it says the answer is, and then it says the answer. Great. Now, let's go to Wikipedia. And the unfortunate thing about the way that Wikipedia is set up is that, well, it's actually kind of fortunate for people in other countries, but unfortunate to us is that Wikipedia and eSpeak are not compatible with each other, sadly. So we cannot say the Wikipedia summary or a shortened version of it or anything like that. We can't, even if we convert it to a string or something. Python cannot handle it, and neither can eSpeak or Wikipedia. They're all incompatible. So what we're going to do instead is right before we print the Wikipedia summary, let's just say, let's make the application say, with eSpeak.synth, searched for, and then we'll do a plus, and it's going to search for the input, of course, and then it will print the Wikipedia summary of that input. So now let's run our application and see how it works. Okay. Wait for it. So it says welcome. The box pops up. Now just to prove to you that it's true, Wolfram Alpha does handle string conversion, and you don't have to worry about if your answer is a number or anything like that. I'll just do 14 plus 8.
The answer is 22.
And it says the answer is 22. Great. Now if I want to ask it something maybe from Wikipedia, like who is Thomas Edison, just like we have this entire time. You're going
for Thomas Edison.
Okay, search for Thomas Edison, and there we have the Wikipedia article come up for Thomas Edison. Good. So now we are done with our application until we want to add more stuff to it. Okay, so if you want to get your application so that it will recognize your speech, it's going to be a little bit more complicated, especially in the installation process. So first, I'll have a link to this website in the resources of this lecture, but we're going to be using the speech recognition API, which is version 3.4.3. And what this does is this gets data from CMU Finks, Google, Microsoft, and IBM, and a lot of other places. For this, we'll be using Google just because I think Google tends to work better and is more reliable than the other speech recognition services, as well as it's a lot easier to set up. To the installation process, because it really differs depending on your system and what you might already have installed. So just go to the requirements of the site and you should be able to do everything just fine. But once you have that, you can get into the actual video. Okay, so right here I have all the code that we need to get data from Google and then to put that into the text box of our application. The only problem is we don't know how to call Go. First of all, we're going to go up to the top and import speech recognition. That's underscore recognition SR, just to make it a little bit easier. Now we'll go into the def on enter statement, and right before our try and accept, we're going to do if input, and let's just say nothing. Then we are going to basically just paste this code into here. So that way, you open up the application, you press enter, you say something, it puts out what it thinks you said, you press enter again, and it searches it for you on our application. Great, so now let's just take all of this, except for the import part, of course. Control C, and let's just paste it into there. Okay, make sure to tab this in properly. Great, so let me just go over this code quickly so that you understand it better. So first we declare the speech recognizer, and then we use the microphone as the source. Then we listen to the microphone. We're going to try to take what the microphone thinks it picked up, and then put that into the text box of our application. And if there's an unknown value error, then we'll say Google Speech Recognition could not understand audio. And if there is a request error, we're going to say we could not request the result recognition service, which would be, if you're not connected to internet or something. So let me just read this code to you. So if input equals nothing, an empty string, then r equals sr.recognizer with sr.microphone as source, audio equals r.listen source. Try self.text.setValue r.recognize Google audio. That's the important part. Recognize underscore Google audio, just so the computer doesn't get confused. And except there's an sr.unknown value error, print Google Speech Recognition could not understand audio, except sr request error as e, print could not request the results from Google Speech Recognition service, and then it prints out the error right there with .format.e. And there's one problem. This code is meant for Python 3, and it works fine with Python 2. So let's just take out these on the print statements, which is one of the only differences between Python 2 and 3. Let's take out parentheses statements, and we should be good. Woo! That was a mouthful. So now let's try running our application. Okay, so we got the box, and let's press enter and try to say something. Who is Thomas Edison? And we get an error. And this error is because it says right here, Jack server is not running or cannot be started. And this is just a minor error that'll happen sometimes on Linux systems, but it's very easy to fix that. I'll show you how to fix that in a second. Okay, so the solution to this is very simple. All we have to do is run sudo dpkg-reconfigure-p hi jackkd2, and then when we press enter, it'll ask you for your password, press OK, and then you would press yes, but in my case you don't because I already said it. And this you can find right here on the page, on the Pi, and you see it's only for Ubuntu or Debian. So now let's test out our application and see if it actually worked. I'm going to run python pyda.py. Press enter. Who is Thomas Edison? And you see it put who is Edison right there. Okay, great. So now our application can understand what we say. Now our application works great now that it can read what the user is saying, but now we needed to actually search it, because you see, if I try to look up something with this, you see, I'll say like, hello world. You see, it'll come up with this big, long error message talking about how that's not Wikipedia or whatever. And there's a very easy way to solve this. Everything in a big if-else statement. So we already got the if part, so if input equals nothing, then it's going to try to make the input something. And then under here we'll just do else. Okay, great. And then let's just indent this in. And our application is fixed. So now I'll run this. And I'll just ask it a question like, who is Thomas Edison? You see it pops up with who is Thomas Edison. Then I press enter again. And it is going to try to search it. And you see it searches Thomas Alva Edison. Great, so now we have officially added speech to text or speech recognition to our application.